Thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Paris Schutz. Here's what we're looking at.
It looked like my eyes had a filter over them or something. It was really unusual.
Hundreds gather at Adler Planetarium to catch a glimpse of the solar eclipse. It's on so many people's minds this election season. We talk about having conversations across political divides with two unlikely friends.
The people speak, the people who pay the taxes.
And former Governor Pat Quinn wants voters to weigh in on taxpayer funding for new stadiums. First off, millions of people across the country had their eyes set on the sky today to witness the Great American Eclipse. Reporter Joanna Hernandez joins us live from the Adler Planetarium to share what it was like watching this celestial show in Chicago. Joanna, what was it like?
Well, Paris, I have never seen an eclipse firsthand, and it did not disappoint. It was quite spectacular to just watch and just see all these people come together. Besides the beautiful weather, the best part of this day was just watching people gather and watch their excitement and their curiosity, waiting to see that moon partially cover over that sun. Of course, with their solar eclipse glasses like the giant ones that we see right behind me. Hundreds of people of all ages gathered outside the Adler Planetarium, where the museum hosted a viewing party with different activities for people to enjoy. There were multiple eclipse fans with telescopes, cameras, and even DIY devices spread throughout the museum campus. We talked with one Chicagoan who took her son out of school to watch their first eclipse together.
I want to see the sun, the moon cover the sun.
I created this. I put the solar glasses over the camera and also over mine because I heard on the news the only way you will be able to see it is to cover it. So I did it at home today to cover it so we'll be able to see it.
And she had the right idea. The only way to see the eclipse through your camera lens was to place a solar filter over it. Throughout the day, the planetarium passed out those special filters for people to use. The process began around 12:41. That's when you started to see the moon cover the sun slowly. And the eclipse drew interest worldwide. We met a man who came from Guatemala to watch this phenomenon. We also spoke with the man who bought his first telescope to experience this moment.
My first time using it, so it's something I wanted to learn. I'm kind of into astrology.
Have you ever seen an eclipse?
No.
And what do you think is so fascinating about watching an eclipse?
Well, I do a lot of research in history, so, go all the way back to the Mayans, and I just thought, it's cool to see the sun get blocked out in the daylight, and it just cross over, then you see a tenth of the moon, half of the sun, all the way down to the whole thing is blocked out. I thought it'd be something cool to experience.
And he's right, it was amazing to watch. At the peak of the eclipse around 2 p.m., the sky darkened. It didn't get completely dark since it was a partial eclipse, but you saw the sky dim and the temperature drop. It was a sensory experience. We watched eclipse fans take in every moment of the cosmic spectacular.
Like, I started feeling all the wind. It was really windy.
It's a really weird thing because it just never happens often.
Never seen anything like it, and I took the day off to go to the planetarium, and they said that this is like the last time in our lifetime that we'll see anything like this here.
Yeah, the next one is in 2099. Can you believe that?
Yeah, if I make it, I'll be 109, so.
And you heard right. According to NASA, the next total solar eclipse in Illinois is happening in 2099. That's 75 years from now. So if I make it that far, I will also be 109, Paris. I don't even want to ask how old you're going to be.
Don't ask that, Joanna, but I think we'll both still be here. There's, technology is advancing, and 109 is going to be young at some point in our lifetime. So what was the city like? What did the skyline look like? What was the atmosphere there when it happened?
The atmosphere, I mean, you could hear people screaming. I heard some people get emotional, even just looking at the sky. I think some people were just in disbelief. What was the best part of it was just kind of watching the progression. Every time that I would look up, you can kind of start seeing the moon cover the sun. And then finally, it just felt like, you could only see some of the sun, and you could just, it was really interesting because it got really cold and windy. And then everybody was just quiet, kind of just taking that moment to take it in. And how cool was it that worldwide people were also experiencing the same thing?
Yeah, and I know our colleague and friend Amanda Vinicki is in Carbondale in the path of totality, so we got to get a report from her. I was here at the studios with the entire WTTW staff. We were all looking up. It was cool how the temperature dropped really quickly. All of a sudden it got windy. It got, semi-dark, although not quite as dark as, I guess, the folks in the path of totality. But all in all, fun day, bringing everyone together. Joanna, nice assignment today, and get home safe. We'll talk to you soon. And up next, President Biden hits town for a big fundraiser.
Coverage of science and technology on Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Joel M. Friedman, president of the Alvin H. Baum Family Fund.
Now to more of today's top stories. President Joe Biden is in town for a major fundraiser today. According to the Sun-Times, the president is expected to raise about $2.5 million at an event sponsored by Democratic donors Michael Sachs and Laura Ricketts. Chicago is, of course, the host city for the Democratic National Convention, where President Biden is expected to be renominated. Today's fundraiser is not raising money for that, just for his campaign, according to the Sun-Times. Biden also stopped in Wisconsin today to announce a new student loan forgiveness plan. It's the president's second attempt to implement student loan forgiveness after his first plan was struck down by the Supreme Court. New plans target specific groups of borrowers. If implemented as proposed, borrowers could see relief if they have balances bigger than what they originally borrowed, qualify for forgiveness under existing programs but have not applied, entered repayment at least 20 years ago, enrolled in low financial value programs, or are experiencing financial hardship. We have more details on this plan on our website. And U.S. Secret Service officials say they're beginning to canvass neighborhoods around the United Center to get input from neighbors on a security plan for the DNC. Secret Service says it has sent teams walking door to door to get input and answer questions from residents. The DNC is scheduled to take place August 19th through the 22nd at the United Center. Illinois public officials and other dignitaries are mourning the death of Cook County Clerk Karen Yarbrough. Yarbrough was elected in 2018, the first black woman to serve as county clerk after a long career in politics, including stints as an Illinois state representative and Cook County's recorder of deeds. Mayor Brandon Johnson called Yarbrough a pioneer committed to social and economic justice, while Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle called her a, quote, trailblazer and friend. Yarbrough died after being taken to the hospital for an undisclosed serious illness, and a special election will likely be held in November for a new clerk. Our condolences to all of Yarbrough's loved ones. And up next, how two very different people put aside political divisions. That's right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
Two dads, good friends, divergent political views. One is a former Illinois congressman and former supporter turned critic of Donald Trump. The other an advocate for gun safety after the tragic killing of his school-age daughter. And now they've come together for the Two Dads Tour to try and bridge the toxic political divide in the country. Their latest stop has them at Dominican University in River Forest tomorrow night, where I grew up. Joining us are Joe Walsh, former Republican congressman for Illinois and host of the podcast White Flag with Joe Walsh, and Fred Guttenberg, whose daughter Jamie Guttenberg was murdered in the Parkland school shooting in 2018. He has now dedicated his life to fighting for gun safety in America. Joe, great to see you. Fred, welcome to Chicago Tonight. Joe, the two of you started off as sparring partners and opponents on Twitter, and it was for real. You weren't play acting. How did you come together and why?
Paris, it was for real. We did what most of America today does. Fred and I disagreed on guns, so we yelled at each other. We hurled insults at each other. On social media, on TV, we went after each other in the worst way, and then we reached out to each other privately. And that really is what started it. And then we started to speak privately, got to know each other, and actually began to find some common ground.
Fred, what was your impression of the former congressman here when you were before he reached out to you?
You know, the day after my daughter was killed, I went on a mission to destroy the gun lobby and all of those who I thought pushed the ideas of the gun lobby at the expense of our safety. Joe was one of the people who I had determined I was going to go after because I felt he was wrong on a lot of things, and I didn't really care for the language that he used. I didn't consider it to be truthful. And so he and I spent a couple of years going back and forth. But Joe made the first effort. Joe, in response to an exchange that we were having at one point, said, you know, I don't agree with you, but I really respect what you're trying to do. And it led to this unexpected conversation between us where we realized we're two dads with families we love, with people in our lives who we care about and want to keep safe. And we started to have a conversation from that perspective. And we discovered we liked each other. We've become friends, and we both now are in a place where, in spite of differences that we have, which are many, we agree on the need to defend democracy if we're going to solve the things that we want to in this country.
And Paris, by the way, that's the really important point. Fred and I still disagree on damn near everything. And look, we've got a big election this year. No matter who wins in November, we're going to be even more divided. And if we don't get off of this road where we treat the people who we disagree with as our mortal enemies, Fred and I don't believe our democracy can stand.
Well, Fred, it's got to be very personal to you when you see people that you know are gung-ho about the Second Amendment and gun rights and don't want any kind of protections at all. How do you deal with that? You know, when this is something that is so close to you?
You know, I love the way you asked your question, framing it as if I see this as a Second Amendment issue, because I don't. Listen, I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment. I have no issue with gun owners. I hate gun violence. And I think for me, helping people to understand that by engaging them in conversation is such an important first step. You know, listen, Joe just said we still disagree on damn near everything. The truth is, actually, we don't. There's, in the process of talking, we've discovered a lot of things that we agree on. We disagree on a lot, but because we talk, we've also come to realize there are things we agree on. And, you know, this is how democracy works. Opposing points of view coming together to have the hard conversations to find common ground. I want anyone who thinks that they disagree with me, who thinks I'm an anti-gun guy or an anti-Second Amendment guy, to take the time to just pause for a second and talk to me about what I think. Because what I want to do is reduce gun violence. And I think most people who think they disagree with me agree on that.
And Joe, I know you are a hardcore gun
Yes.
rights guy. So did you change your perspective at all due to your friendship with Fred?
Speaking with Fred over the course of a year did open my eyes to some issues. Paris, you're right. I'm a by my dead cold dead hands kind of a gun guy, but listening to him made me realize there's more we can do before a gun is bought. Expanding background checks. Before I met with Fred and other gun safety advocates, I never would have opened my mind to reforms like that, but I get it.
Fred, what about you? Are there things that maybe you modified your views on as a result of talking to Joe?
You know, listen, I don't look at everyone with an opposing point of view as being evil anymore. And honestly, while it is true that there are people who maybe run some of these lobbying groups like the NRA or in these companies that push sales at the expense of safety, who I do think are evil, I think the majority of Americans actually are like Joe and I. They want to find a way to solve this. And I think the majority of Americans benefit from a conversation where we talk about ways to reduce the gun violence death rate, where we talk about ways to reduce instances of gun violence. And so, whereas in the first couple of years, my anger and emotion really drove me to just destroy and demonize a point of view. I want to work with people to find the ways to save lives, to stop the next one.
If lawmakers focused on outcomes,
Yes.
everyone wants the same outcome as opposed to perhaps the process or their firmly held beliefs, you might have something here.
Yes.
So Joe, this is being played out across the country. Family members don't talk to each other anymore. Friends don't talk to each other anymore. You've had a lot of falling out with friends. So how do you two speak to each other and disagree without being disagreeable?
A couple things. We get really wound up and passionate when we talk still. We do disagree on a number of things still. Fred and I have a rule, though. Listen to the other person. Always try to understand where they're coming from, even if you find no common ground. And every conversation Fred and I have, no matter how it gets, we always end with a hug. We always end with an embrace, no matter what.
And I'll just add one thing to what Joe said. Because we've come to know each other and talk regularly, we've come to trust one another. We don't question each other's motives when it comes to a point of view. We've come to trust each other enough to talk it through.
Fred, are there still issues where you're just like, Joe, I got to get you to my side on this. I really disagree with you.
Yeah. And Joe knows where I'm going to go with this because I'm determined. Joe is still not with me on the need to raise the age to 21.
To purchase a firearm.
Yes, and that is for me a really big deal. We've also talked a lot about red flag. I think Joe is, and I don't want to speak for Joe, he's come a lot closer to me there than he might have been some time ago, but he's not there yet on 21, and I think that's a problem.
All right, well, there's hope here, though. The two of you might disagree on that, but you're probably going to hug at some point after that event tomorrow.
I'll hug him.
All right. That's the Two Dads Defending Democracy. It's a tour that'll make a stop in River Forest tomorrow night at 7 at Dominican University. You can find more information on that event on our website. And up next, should voters weigh in on whether public funds should be used for new stadiums? We explore that topic right after this. It's been nearly 25 years since former Governor Pat Quinn called for a referendum on whether the Bears should get tax dollars for the team's costly Soldier Field renovation. His efforts were shot down, and taxpayers are still on the hook for some $600 million of that rehab effort, even though the Bears might not play at Soldier Field much longer. Now, as the Bears and White Sox are on the hunt for taxpayer cash to fund new stadiums, Quinn says it's once again time to ask the voters what they think. And joining us is former Illinois Governor Pat Quinn. So, Governor Quinn, you filed an ordinance with the city clerk's office. You want some older people to get this passed. What specifically are you calling for?
Well, we want the mayor and the city council to put it on the November ballot. The ordinance calls for a straightforward question: should taxpayer subsidy be used to help the Bears and the White Sox build new stadiums or real estate developments? Other places around the country, other cities, are voting on these referendums. Just last week in Kansas City, but here in Chicago, up to now, the politicians don't want the people to be heard, and so that's why we have to really work hard in the next few weeks to get the mayor, especially, to be a leader here. Give voters a chance to vote on a referendum that really matters.
And we know the history here. Well, there's a proposal for the new White Sox stadium. But Jerry Reinsdorf, the White Sox owner, got the current stadium funded nearly entirely by taxpayers. Of course, so Soldier Field 2, the renovations, and we're still paying that off.
$660 million is what the cost is.
Lots of interest payments, so we're going to be paying it for the next 8 years.
2032.
Yeah.
And the Bears now want to tear down Soldier Field, leave only the colonnades, and then build a new stadium for themselves in the parking lot south of Soldier Field.
So when you say taxpayers footing the bill, do you mean for the stadium itself or for infrastructure around there? Because a lot of these teams propose, well, could you help us out with some roads, infrastructure, maybe, if we develop around there?
Well, a lot of their proposals sound good if you say it fast. You don't really know the details, particularly with the Bears. It's very murky what exactly that they're proposing as far as taxpayer money. So it's better to first ask the taxpayers, do you want to even get into this? You know, $660 million could have paid for a lot of housing for people who need housing in Chicago and a lot of other things, whether it's public safety or education. We shouldn't just invest our money in sports stadiums. We already have Soldier Field remodeled into a spaceship by the taxpayers. And I was in the upper deck of White Sox Park for opening day. It looks good to me.
My condolences to you.
They're losing right now.
It doesn't look very good on the field. Oh, boy.
1-8, and they're going for 1-9.
So how different do you think the Bears situation would be had your referendum passed, the voters had a say, perhaps they would have voted down that plan?
We would have saved all that money. Matter of fact, the Bears struck a deal with Mayor Daley where the Bears would sell the name of Soldier Field. It's going to be sold to Bank One. So it's going to be Bank One Field at Soldier Field. And, you know, $300 million was going to be given to the Bears just for the naming
I remember
rights.
this was it after 9/11 where the mayor came out and said, well, now you can't change the name of Soldier Field. He kind of strong-armed them on that one.
Yeah, but we put in the mayor's precinct, his home precinct, a advisory question, at least in the precinct, should we sell the name of Soldier Field, a war memorial? And people voted no. I think the mayor got the word, and I think our current mayor, you know, he ran on a campaign of grassroots democracy. This is what we're talking about. In Kansas City, they had Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and all these guys saying, vote yes for a referendum, taxpayer money for a new stadium for the Chiefs. Voters said, no, we like you guys on the field, but we're not going to pay for it.
And this was only 3/8 of a cent, basically, on a sales tax.
3/8 of a sales tax.
Of
That's
sales
a lot
tax.
of money.
Yeah.
It adds up after a while.
Yeah.
But the point of the matter is, for too long in Illinois and Chicago, voters haven't had a chance to vote on issues as well as candidates. That's what referendums are all about. I believe in referendums.
Well, someone could make the argument, though, say in California, they govern by referendum a lot more than in Illinois. It could get messy.
But how about Ohio,
Too much democracy is messy.
Michigan, Missouri? Midwest states have all kinds of referendums put on the ballot by voters. A lot of times the insiders don't want to hear at all from the public, so they don't like referendums. But it's time now to take charge. This is what it's all about.
Well, you're going to need some allies in city council to carry this forward. Do you have anybody willing to do it?
I've sent all the information, the costs, to the members of the city council that I could get a hold of, and I'm hoping that they see the light. I think a lot of council members know that we have public safety issues. We definitely have housing issues. We just had a referendum that was on the ballot dealing with housing, Bring Home Chicago. Well, that didn't pass, but giving more money to the Bears to build another stadium so they can tear down the one they got, that doesn't make much sense for housing. You know, we need prevent defense against the Bears for the taxpayers to win.
Not so subtle there. Not so subtle there. Well, you know, the White Sox owner, first of all, we had to guess that he would go down to Springfield hat in hand, asking for nearly the whole pot of money here for his new stadium. Beautiful though those plans may be, he says he might have to move the team if he can't get some help. As a White Sox fan, are you worried about that?
The owner is a trustee for the fans. I'm a fan, a lifelong fan of the Sox. When I was governor, I was for the Sox, the Cubs, and sometimes when the Cardinals are in the playoffs, Southern Illinois is a Cardinal fan. I'm a baseball fan.
That East St. Louis, Belleville area, that's an important voting block there.
I lived in East St. Louis once upon a time. The point is, fans should come first. Taxpayers should come first. You know, I'm a fan of all the teams, but I'm a fan number one of the taxpayers. And we can't have in Chicago huge amounts of money, taxpayer money, going to build new stadiums when we have such crying needs on other things. And giving people a chance at the ballot box to send a message to the mayor and to the city council is the healthiest way to go, the best way to go.
Governor, you flirted with, this is not the first referendum in the last couple of years. You asked for term limits. The former mayor didn't really do much on that.
No, he wanted a referendum on plastic straws instead of a binding referendum on term limits for the mayor. That was a manual.
That was a manual, but then under Lightfoot, too, that you were proposing
She wouldn't put it on the ballot. You know, every other big city in America has a 2-term limit on the mayor. New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Houston, you name it. We don't. And for too long, I think we should have it on the ballot for people to vote on, and it would be binding. The people of Chicago pay the taxes. They should be in the driver's seat, not just the insiders telling the everyday people living from paycheck to paycheck what to do. It's time for us to send the message.
All right, Governor Quinn. Well, the message is out here on Chicago Tonight. I have to say, you're my last official interview on Chicago Tonight here in my career at WTTW. It's an honor to do it. It's good to see you. I covered you for many years as governor. Those were very interesting times.
You know, I was with John Calloway when he started this show.
All right.
And you're a worthy successor.
Thank you so much, Governor. Really, that's high praise. Thank you. And that's our show for this Monday night. Join us tomorrow at 5:30 and 10. Fallout from longtime Democratic political heavyweight Karen Yarborough's death and more in Spotlight Politics, and how an early diagnosis can lead to better outcomes for people with autism. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Paris Schutz. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a great evening.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that is proud to be a multilingual law firm that provides translators for a variety of languages.